Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas. I apologize about last week. It got really hectic. I got really sidelined and forgot about you, to be honest. Not about you guys, I mean, but, you know, about doing the show. I would remember at the end of the night, and like, I didn't do the show. And then it went like that the whole week. So, again, I apologize. It's not really my intention. But today, I have a story. I have three different sources for this story. The Military Times. Let's see. Oh, Office of Public Affairs from the U.S. Federal Building, and from the Times, the New York Times. So I tried really hard to actually get three solid sources that I figured you guys could follow. And I will put these in the description down below or something. I'll put them somewhere. So the first one, like I said, American Military News. I'm sorry, not Military Times. Sabotage. Chinese code hidden in U.S. military systems. China can cut off military power. Water communications report says. Now this is important only in the sense that this is not new news. Not to me at any rate, and not to anybody in the military. We've known this for going on 45 years, I bet. I remember when Reagan was president and there was a question about Chinese code or breaking into either the Pentagon or the Defense Department all the time. It wasn't good code, wasn't great code. They would find it pretty quickly and I suppose eradicate it, but they never said they did. And so, all that being said, there you go. I gotta get coffee because it's morning. Anyway, so in this report, and I'm going to read just a little bit of you. This is a really short report. One of the things I like about American Military News is they very succinct. There's no bias or doesn't seem to be any bias or, you know, that kind of thing in there. So United States officials have discovered Chinese malware on multiple military systems that experts claim was intended to disrupt U.S. military and may give China the ability to cut power, water, and communications to military bases. Now, in this article, they mention also, is it in this article or New York Times? One of them, where in a lot of places, the local economy is tied so tightly to the military base that in and out electricity, in and out plumbing is all tied to that base for the local economy. There are so many bases that are in or very near major metropolitan areas that it could cause a serious issue if it was to go, if it even went like just southwestern United States or northeastern United States or Midwest. It could really do a lot of economical damage as well as putting people into the dark. You put people in the dark in this kind of environment right now with the heat on the East Coast with the rain. You could kill millions of people without batting an eye, without pulling a bullet, just because of the heat, with no way to dissipate the heat, especially in the Midwest and in the Northeast, or in the Southeast, I'm sorry. You can't dissipate that heat. People die of heat exhaustion, and it's going to get nasty. It'll get nasty real quick. So, according to the New York Times, which is an article that I did pull up as well, experts have warned that the recent malware attack used a different form of code, that the capability of disrupting both military and civilian operations, a notable departure from previous malware attacks that were limited to surveillance operations. And that's what I remember from the 80s. The malware is just sitting there, just sucking up information, not doing anything else. It was just there as, like they said, surveillance. Or at least that's what we were told. If that's true, yeah, that's a possibility. But anyway, during a recent Intelligence and National Security Summit, Deputy Director of National Security Agent George Barnes stated, China is a steadfast and determined to penetrate our governments, our companies, our critical infrastructure. His sentence structure is a little odd, but what he says is not untrue. But we've known this for decades. China has been digging into everybody's personal stuff. United States, Canada, Mexico, Taiwan, Thailand, Korea, South Korea. North Korea doesn't have anything to offer them. We already know that. Russia, they have put feelers out in all the countries in Africa. 9 o'clock, thank you very much. They are building dams and rivers and infrastructure in Africa to get good relations with those countries and a great foothold in those countries. Because then they can do stuff like, what is it, Nigerian prince crap? So with little repercussions, because you could track it back to Africa, but after that, you have no idea exactly where it came from. It's very difficult to track further than the continent of Africa for anybody who's not an expert in that type of thing. At any rate, so New York Times reported that the malware has potential to allow China to cut off access to U.S. military bases, to power, water, and communications, as well as impact homes and businesses throughout the United States. National Security Agency Director of Cybersecurity, Rob Joyce, has described the new malware as really disturbing. I think that's understatement of the year, possibly the decade. Yes, it's disturbing. No, it's not a surprise. I think the surprise was the Chinese turning from strictly surveillance and stealing knowledge and design for whatever they wanted. They were into Boeing, they were into Lockheed Martin, they were into Rockwell, I think it's Rockwell. They were into all kinds of military stuff. So they could tell what we were doing, which is how they get to the J-20. United States and Russia, by far, had the most advanced aircraft on the planet for decades. And now China is coming up with the J-20, which is a stealth fighter. Has almost the same capabilities as a Raptor, sorry about that, which is the dominant aircraft on the planet as far as fighter aircraft go. It has over-the-horizon targeting, which they say the J-20 has, or China says the J-20 has. It also has passive, so that it can target through passive radar distances of, we're talking miles now, nautical miles, well outside of anybody else's range, outside of the new F-15, the new F-16, and the F-35 Lightnings. Unfortunately for the Air Force, in my opinion, the Raptor is being, or has been, just shut down. They shut down production of the Raptor after only a couple of hundred aircraft, 400 aircraft, something like that, when in fact they had ordered 800 aircraft, I think. And then when the United States military decided to shut that down, or at least temporarily shut it down, Lockheed Martin or Boeing, I forget who was actually building the aircraft, put their building blocks and their material and their machines away, or tore them apart to use in other things. So there's that flight line or that build line is gone. It's not there anymore at all. It's not even for an F-35. There's nothing in that building right now that was building the Raptor. Unfortunately, in my opinion, again, like I said, the Raptor is the #1 plane, fighter plane on the planet. The Gripen from Sweden, #2. One of the better aircraft. It is the best aircraft in the European theater right now, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, Ukraine had been begging for F-16s and F-15s, which work in tandem all the time. F-15 is an Overwatch aircraft, and F-16 is an in-and-out fighter bomber. It can get in there, protect itself while it's inside, and then drop munitions, and then get back out really quickly. It's a very quick, very tight turning, has really great handling aircraft. The F-15 is an air superiority aircraft, which means it can see far, it can shoot far, it can get into a dogfight if it needs to, and get out of a dogfight very well. They're both together, they're a great pair of aircraft. The Raptor, like I said, top of the line, it does both. It can do both. But primarily it is a distance fighter. That's why they gave it the great over the horizon targeting system and all that good stuff. It's nobody can touch it. Russian aircraft, very similar, not quite at the level that we're building now, and we're building something beyond what we have now, allegedly, because we're going to have to support the Air Force with another stealth fighter. They want to push the F-35 Lightning II, which is better than the first F-35 Lightning, which was extremely expensive to maintain as well as fly. It doesn't get the mileage out of the tank that the Raptor gets. It doesn't do a lot of things, but it is a heavier airframe because the Navy wanted one with a tail hook. That requires an extremely heavy airframe, strength-wise. And I think I'm getting a little off the subject, but you understand what I'm saying. It's important that we protect better our military infrastructure and computer systems. They must be offline. They cannot be open to the internet. They must be wired, hardwired, because hardwire is much more difficult to break, much more difficult to break into. If you're online, over the wire, over the air, it's cake. At least for people who do that on a regular basis, it's cake. Getting in and getting out, laying down the foundations of what they want to do while they're in there. It's cake for them if it's over the line or over the air. At any rate, so the Chinese are doing everything they can to figure out what we're doing and try and beat us to the punch. Currently, they have never been able to beat us to the punch until the J-20. The J-20 and their newer aircraft carriers, much better, leaps and bounds better than what they did in the prior generations. So it says that, I mean, that tells us almost exactly where they got the information and how they were able to integrate it into their building facilities. So it's something that we need to pay attention to, better attention than we are. And I do not know why the American military is not all over this. Not all over this much earlier. Especially, like I said, since the 80s we've known China has been breaking into our systems. Why are they still allowed to do that? Why is it still that easy for them to do? They shouldn't be able to do that. Neither should the Russians or the Iranians or the Iraqis. Shouldn't be able to do that. Our system should be locked down, rock solid, and they're not. You can't get into Cheyenne, but Cheyenne is wired, hardwired, all over. There's no Wi-Fi getting into Cheyenne, besides the fact that it's a mountain. So, Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Rockwell and all of those companies need to hardwire their systems so they can't be broken into. The local economy needs to hardwire their systems so they can't be broken into. It's too easy for the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, etc. to get into our systems and figure out what we're doing. Or, in this case, building a malware system that can shut things down. Because I feel the first inkling that we're going to have of World War III is no electricity or our plumbing is backed up. I don't have any doubt that that's the plan, because what are we going to do if we can't talk to our aircraft? What are we going to do if we can't talk to our ships at sea? What are we going to do if we can't direct our infantry to the proper places? Nothing. There will be nothing to stop. There will be nothing to stop the there we go. There will be nothing to stop the Chinese from just walking in, except, 150 million people with guns. And we're not organized, not that organized. We can be. Almost, I would say 2/3 of the people who own weapons today are ex-military of some sort. And we are used to gathering, reconnoitering, making noise, breaking things and killing people. We're just used to that. We can make other people used to that. So, all that being said, I will add these three. There's three articles. Like I said, there's this one. There's this one from the Office of Public Affairs. U.S. charges 5 Chinese military hackers for cyber espionage against U.S. corporations and a labor organization for commercial advantage. This one is a little bit different, but there's a lot of depth in this article, which is the only reason I'm not reading it. It's multiple pages, and there's a couple of graphics. I think you should read it if you do that kind of thing. I think you should read it. You should follow up on this. The other one is from the New York Times, which the military, American Military News cited the Times in that. But this article is also very long, and I don't want to read it to you because I know how bored you are with that kind of thing. There is one thing I do want to read from the New York Times, because the New York Times went a little more in depth than obviously the military offer did. The initial Microsoft discovery in Guam, I'm going to go back to the top because this is right at the top. I apologize, I forgot that. Here we go. Okay. The discovery of the malware has raised fears that Chinese backers, probably working for the People's Liberation Army, have inserted code designed to disrupt U.S. military operations in the event of a conflict, including if Beijing moves against Taiwan in coming years. Where did it say that? Was that above this? Sorry about that. The malware, one congressional official said, was essentially a ticking time bomb that could give China the power to interrupt or slow American military deployments or resupply operations by cutting off power, water, and communications to U.S. military bases. But its impact could be, we talked about that. Let's see. So anyway, Microsoft said it detected the mysterious computer code in telecommunication systems in Guam, the Pacific island with a vast American airbase, and elsewhere in the United States. But that turned out to be only a narrow slice of the problem that Microsoft could see through its networks. I'm going to go down here a ways. Is the next one here? I apologize. I know I should have been back. Here we go. The initial Microsoft discovery in Guam, home to major U.S. Air Force and Marine bases, was attributed by the company, Microsoft, to a Chinese state-sponsored hacking group with the company name Volt Typhoon. A warning from the Homeland Security Department's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the National Security Agency, and others, issued the same day, also said the malware is from state-sponsored Chinese hacking group and was living off the land. I don't know what that means. The phrase means, sorry if I was paying attention, the phrase means that it was avoiding detection by blending in with normal computer activity conducted by authorized users. But the warning did not outline other details of the threat. So, and this is also a big article, you should actually read this one. Like I said, I will put all three of these in the description box below. So, for what all that's worth, tell me what you think. I would really like to know what you think about this. And if you're old enough to remember, again, like in the 80s and 90s when China was all over our military infrastructure computer systems, and they weren't alone. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you remember that. Tell me what you think this means, and how close you think it may be getting us to World War III, or at least war with China over Taiwan, probably. Again, thanks very much for listening. I do appreciate it. Remember, even fluffy bunnies have teeth and claws for a reason. Live long, fight hard, win the day. See ya.